I'm the Jagged Wizard, and today I'm going to be talking about safety tools. First off, if you don't know what safety tools are a way to make sure that everyone is safe while playing a tabletop role-playing game. And this is mostly a form of content moderation, a way to make sure that the content isn't overstepping where someone would feel unsafe with what is being presented. We'll get into what it could be a little bit later because I have a great example of a game that sets up how to use safety tools phenomenally. Now that we know what safety tools are, let's talk a little bit about who is responsible for making sure safety tools are implemented in a game. The biggest answer to this is you are. It doesn't matter if you're a GM, it doesn't matter if you're a player. The important thing is that you speak up for whether or not you're feeling safe in any given environment. As someone on the table, you also want to make sure everyone else in the table is okay with the content that is being presented. And this applies to both GMs and players. It's not just a GM responsibility and it's not just a player responsibility. Everyone needs to work together and communicate about how they feel about what is going on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a game called As the Sun Forever Sets. It's currently in a playtest. As part of their core rulebook, as they go through and talk about all of the different ways that you can ensure that everyone feels safe while playing tabletop role-playing games. So I'm going to start with their first preliminary judgment, and this is choosing a content rating. So in the game, it's based on War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, and so it deals with more mature themes. So their options are PG, PG-13, and R. And I could see some games where having a G rating would be an option, but not very many of the games I play. So just an idea that can be there. And you can pick between those for what you're most comfortable playing as a group. And the GM can kind of start there with how much they're going to include of certain aspects. The next thing that As the Sun Forever Sets introduces are called lines and veils. So what a line is it's when a player indicates something that they are not comfortable having at the table in any way, shape, or form. It shouldn't be discussed. It's not a part of the world, so to speak. Or as far as any of the characters will ever know, it's not a part of the world. Whereas a veil is something where it can be present in the story, but it is a fade to black moment where the players don't actually see any of the actual graphic or detailed stories of whatever is going on there. So what I would do is I would have a little survey where it has each of these listed out, and then it has a section where you can check line, you can check veil, or you can check not applicable if it's not something you're particularly concerned about. The important thing about this is that once these lines and veils have been declared, they're non-negotiable. And it's the responsibility of all of the players and the GM to keep track of these and make sure that we aren't venturing into territory where anyone will feel unsafe with the content being presented. So those things that I've talked about, the lines and veils in that survey, are all things I would set up before the game even starts. Those would all be a part of session 0. I would recommend doing it as a list of topics. I like this, having them all listed out makes me think, I'm like, oh, how comfortable am I with that kind of content? Is that something I'm willing to play with in a game or not? I recommend doing it that way because you will get a more definitive response, and it's easier for the players to understand and have clear topics that may be presented during the game so you know when preparing whether or not that's something you want to include. The next section is all about in-game tools. There's a red card, a yellow card, and a green card. And the red card is we stop this discussion where it's at, or this scene, whatever it is, where it's at, because it's in a territory where someone feels unsafe. That generally will introduce a permanent line to that type of content for the rest of your group's existence. The next one is a yellow line, and it's a similar thing, but it introduces a veil where someone can sense that it's going in a direction and doesn't want it to go any further than where it's at. They wouldn't feel safe with it progressing any further. And a green card is to indicate that you're enjoying the level of content and detail in any given scene. And these are things that the GM, you can either have set out on your table or as part of a chat, depending on if you're virtual or in person. And it's just a way to have all of your players engaged and make sure that they feel safe with what is happening at your table. Next are well-being tools, and these are just ways for you to check in with your players and are a good way to make sure that everyone's safe. Again, that's what this is all about. This is all about making sure that everyone is going to have an enjoyable experience and that we aren't going to ruin anyone's experience by getting into content that they don't feel safe with. So the next one is just like checking. The well-being tools are just basically, as a GM or as a player, you can check in with your players, ask how everyone's feeling. You can call for a break, give like a water break, snack break, and also if you're a GM, give you 5 minutes to panic about what you're preparing next because you have no idea what's happening. Or you can end the session if you're about to get into something that might be a little too taxing. If it's getting close to the end of the session and it's going to be either a long fight or something like that, you can just end the session so that everyone gets done when they should. This is something for me as a GM I want to improve, and that's part of why I'm making a video on it, to help me get a better idea of how I want to do this as a GM. The next thing is something that I've never actually seen discussed in this way, and it's called bleed. And so this thing is when your characters' motivations and your motivations bleed together. The example they give in the book is someone trips you when they're trying to get away from a Martian, and you get like back together and you start just yelling at your other player. And that might be a time where you need to step back and make sure that this isn't something you need to evaluate, whether you as a player are mad at the other player or if that's your character mad at the other character. And this is a perfect time to be like, hey, GM, can I take 5-10 minute break, kind of figure out like how we want to roleplay this? And honestly, this is one of those things where as role players, you can just say, we have a fight about it and this is the result we come to, if you're not comfortable with that style of role playing. As a GM, I've had times where I've been running a game and I can't tell if my players are fighting for real or if their characters are just going at it, which I always checked in with them after and I'm like, you guys are actually mad at each other, right? And they were like, oh no, good heavens, no. That's not something that everyone feels comfortable engaging with. And so if that's not, I think it's perfectly fine if you just want to be like, we have a debate or argument or fist fight, and this is the result we come to. And if it can be either a state of tension or a state of, okay, we finally figured it out. Another thing it says is talk over it with the group and make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page and make sure everyone knows what's going on. And you need to just, again, be aware of what are your feelings and what are your character's feelings. Because if you know that, you can communicate that to the players and everyone else will be able to help you. And if they needed to in the future make different character choices because it will positively impact everyone's role playing, I think that's something that's well worth everyone's time. And the last thing is you could also talk to someone outside of the group, someone who's not playing the game, and just get an outside voice and kind of talk to them and see their thoughts on it. Communication is the key to any relationship, and I would say it's just as important in a tabletop role-playing game setting as any other. Granted, the stakes aren't as high as, say my marriage. I prioritize communicating with my wife far above that which I do with my tabletop role-playing game friends. But that doesn't change the fact that unless we are communicating as a table, we're never going to be able to enhance the game in a way that we would be able to with this communication. And I'm a big proponent of communication. It has been my go-to phrase whenever anyone comes to me for advice about basically anything. All in all, I think As the Sun Forever Sets makes a great template for how safety tools can be implemented in a game. And I really do enjoy what they did with this. And this is a game, it's currently in playtest. I'm super excited to be able to try it out. I recently read War of the Worlds, and so when I saw this, it made me so excited because I think the theme, again, a lot of the games I want to pick up and try are based on theme and why I love the theme that they go with. That doesn't mean they always hit. I recently played a game that I'm going to be making a video on where the theme and the enjoyability of playing did not match up, which was really unfortunate because the theme was so good. But that's for another video. As for now, why should you use safety tools in your game? Because I think safety tools are the best way to be able to have clear communication as a group so that everyone has a say in the content and in the way the story is going, and that everyone feels safe at your table. It's not just for players, it's not just for GMs, it's for everyone. And if everyone is on board with that, it will ultimately lead to the best game you can have with that group. If you have any questions about safety tools or any other questions, tips, feel free to leave a comment below. If you've enjoyed this content, please like it. Thank you so much for watching the video, and have a great day.